All right, hello everybody. Natalie Ross here with Naturally Radiant Wellness. In this video, we're going to talk about your stomach acid and your digestive fire. If you don't know me already, I am a holistic health practitioner. I work one-on-one with individuals to get to the root of their chronic health issues. And today we're going to talk about the importance of why your stomach acid is so important, as well as ways in which we are depleted of energy when we don't have the adequate amount of stomach acid. Now, to get started, I want to first just preface this video by acknowledging that most of us do not have enough stomach acid. And this is usually pertaining to different diet and lifestyle factors, mainly pertaining to stress, as well as just mindset in general. So when we don't have enough stomach acid, we are not as able to thoroughly digest and break down the foods that we're taking in, depending on what it is. And just as a reminder, our digestive system its primary role is not only to be a border between us and the outside world, but it's also meant to help us to digest, assimilate, and eliminate, as well as metabolize all of the foods that we're taking in on a daily basis. And so your stomach plays a critical role within that. It helps to churn and break down all of the heavy foods that we're taking in. So for instance, meat is one of the hardest things for our body to break down. And so when we don't have enough stomach acid, what happens is, unfortunately, those foods, whether it be meat or another food, starts to putrefy within our digestive tract and starts to cause other problems. And so your stomach itself, the importance of your stomach acid, it's essential to have a repletion of stomach acid in order to thoroughly break down foods at an adequate level. Now, as I mentioned, there's different dietary and lifestyle factors, medical factors that may be depleting our stomach acid, and so that's why it's important to pay attention to the regulation of nutrients, the regulation of ability for us to thoroughly break down our foods on a regular basis. And so the stomach itself, the primary ways in which it absorbs nutrients is through the stomach wall, the stomach lining, and it primarily will absorb alcohol, sugar, minerals and salts, as well as water and medications upon arriving in the stomach. Aside from that, the stomach is going to help to break down and churn the actual food particles to create it into chyme and to make it into more of a bolus that can pass through the small intestine and the, not a bolus, it's just called chyme, pass through the small intestine through the colon. And as I mentioned, when we don't have enough stomach acid, we can't thoroughly break down our food enough for it to be digestible and assimilatable by our small intestine. So the pH itself of the stomach acid is about a 1. I think it's like 1-3, depending on the person. But 1 specifically is going to be the lowest amount of pH that we have in our stomach. That's like enough to melt a nail. That's crazy. So when you think about the power of your stomach, the power of your stomach acid, that is why it is called your digestive fire, because it's literally incinerating and helping to break down those really strong structures within the foods that we're eating. So depending on the person, you may have a different lifestyle, you may have a different diet, but the umbrella within which we all must pay attention to is ensuring that we have enough stomach acid, whether we're eating really hard to digest foods a lot or if we're eating a lot of easy to digest foods a lot. Either way, we all need stomach acid in order to thoroughly break down these foods, in order to fully assimilate the nutrients, and in order to protect ourselves from any sort of bacterial infections that we may be getting from the outside nutrients, the outside foods that we're taking in. So within that, there are some myriad of issues that come along with low stomach acid. For one, it's going to be mental emotional problems, anxiety, depression, worry, These are all common emotional imbalances when it comes to having a digestive system that's out of balance, as well as stomach ulcers or any sort of possible fungal or parasite infection or chronic infection that comes along with not being able to properly break down foods in the ways in which we need to. Now, these are just the beginning of some other larger systemic issues that may come into play further down the line. But in general, when it comes to low stomach acid, we need to pay attention to the fact that it is a deficit to our body. It's a deficit to us to be able to fully and vitally break down foods and assimilate nutrients, as I mentioned earlier. Our stomach acid is also going to help burn up bacteria, going to help burn up different viruses that we may be taking in. And so it's really one of our first defense mechanisms before it enters our small intestine and gets into touch with our immune system in a more deep way. If we don't fully break down foods in the way in which our body is meant to, then it does lead to putrefaction as well as fungal and parasite infections, as I mentioned. And this alone will cause a dysbiosis within our intestinal tract, can cause leaky gut syndrome, and can cause a myriad of food intolerances along the way. Those alone will start to lead to systemic stressors, chronic fatigue, poor digestion, possible autoimmune issues, and a myriad of other issues that come along with not having proper digestion, along with nutrient malabsorption. So, I hope that helps to cover the importance of your stomach acid and why it's so important to ensure that your stomach acid is repleted. Now, one thing I want to touch on as well is PPIs. So PPIs are prescribed to many who may have gastritis, who may have GERD, may have acid reflux. And PPIs, although unbeknownst to many people, PPIs are what are called proton pump inhibitors. And they essentially turn off your stomach's ability to produce gastric juices and HCl in which they need to. And so the issue with that is that you're not going to be producing stomach acid. You're not going to be able to digest food as adequately. It's going to lead to nutrient malabsorption, and it's also going to lead to other stomach problems or digestive problems along the way. So there's a cascade of effects that come with taking PPIs. It's not just alleviating GERD and acid reflux temporarily. Now, I do recommend if you are suffering from those kind of issues that you instead re-inoculate your ability to produce stomach acid in a healthful way. So that includes maybe taking an HCl supplement, maybe taking some digestive enzymes with your food. Either way, you want to make sure that you're properly producing stomach acid and that you're able to secrete gastric juices to be able to thoroughly break down your food in the ways in which your body needs to assimilate them. Another thing too is proper hydration. Within your stomach, you have what's also called a mucosal lining that's generated when you drink water, and if you're dehydrated, it starts to thin that mucosal lining and it starts to allow the stomach acid to leach onto the actual wall of the stomach instead of it being protected by that thin mucosal lining that's hydrated with water. So it's important to ensure that you're hydrated. It's also important to make sure that your stomach acid is repleted. So those two factors will help to enable your stomach to better digest food. All right, so just to recap, your stomach and your digestive fire. So your stomach is going to help to be your main portal to help to break down bacteria, to help to churn the foods in which you're taking in, to help to churn them to better be assimilated as nutrients for your small intestine and for your colon. Your stomach is also going to be the main bacterial incinerator, so it's going to help to kill off bad bacteria, help to kill viruses along the way, and help to break down those really, really hardy foods that must be broken down before they meet the small intestine and the colon. Next, your stomach acid as well as your hydration levels. So your stomach acid needs to be repleted and your hydration needs to be up to par in order for both the mucosal lining of your stomach to be protecting your stomach lining and then your stomach acid to thoroughly break down the food in which it needs to. So I hope that that's helpful for you. I hope that you can understand the importance of your stomach acid in you and why maybe taking a PPI, if that is something that you may be using on a regular basis, maybe there's other ways to counteract the effects of the PPI by instead re-inoculating the amount of stomach acid you have instead of trying to take it away. Because oftentimes the symptomologies of low stomach acid, the symptomologies of high stomach acid, like acid reflux and GERD, are actually the causation of low stomach acid, or a result of low stomach acid. So it's important to pay attention to those and just do your own diligence as far as when you're eating as well. Mindfully paying attention to each bite, and I like to say the phrase, drink your food and chew your water. When you're drinking your food, you are essentially doing a lot of the heavy lifting for your stomach. So you're breaking down your food into really, really, really small pieces instead of chunks. And that eliminates the amount of work that your stomach has to do to churn the food and to break it down as heavily. So I hope that this is helpful for you, and I hope that you take something away from this video, and I hope that you have a wonderful and healthful day to everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great day.